Broadcasting from Silicon Valley, California, this is Conversations with Jennylyn.
You are watching Conversations with Jennylyn, and as I continue this COVID-19 World Interview Series, I'm trying to get as many countries as possible included. And today we are in Mexico, and my guest is Nunez of VaVel. And Alan, thank you so much for taking time out to do this with me. Do you want to first introduce VaVel and let my viewers know what it is? And then we will move on to what Corona is doing in Mexico.
Yes, of course. First of all, I want to thank you, Jennylyn, for inviting me to be in your show. It's a great pleasure to be here with you again. And yeah, I mean, VaVel, my official position is Chief Operative Officer of VaVel.com or VaVel Media. And basically what we do is we are an international sports digital media company. We are available in 10 countries, and we publish content in more than 6 different languages. And what we do is we report on sports news. And I think that the biggest thing that we do is, giving chances and allowing, new and upcoming reporters that are coming out of college to have their first chances, beat writers, beat reporters. And at the same time, I can say that I'm really proud of having the possibility of giving people the chance. And also one of the branches of the company that we just started 2 years ago, it's a branch that focuses on developing technological solutions for private and public entities. So at the same time, we're also developing technology to provide software as solution services for these two either public or private institutions. So that's basically what we do at VaVel.
Well, thank you for giving us the update. And Alan is no stranger to Conversations with Jennylyn. While visiting California, he was on my show. And so it's great to be doing this with you again. So unfortunately, this segment is apparently not, you don't have very good news for us in terms of how the corona is ravishing your nation, especially the city where you live. What is the city called where you live?
I'm based at Puebla City, which is the capital of Puebla State. It's one of the 31 states that conform Mexico. And in terms of importance, I could say that it's probably the 3rd biggest city after Mexico City and Guadalajara.
Okay, and so you said that your city is the one that's been hit the hardest by the corona. Is that correct?
Yeah. So right now, according to the numbers that the president and the Ministry of Health announced yesterday during their daily press conferences that usually hold at 7 p.m., they announced that Puebla is the 3rd city with the 3rd state and the 2nd city with the most cases of coronavirus. Mexico City is the 1st one. So right now, we're not in a great shape here. And Mexico City, it's only 2 hours away by car from Puebla. So it seems that the epicenter of COVID-19, it's striking the most here in the middle of Mexico.
Why do you think that is so?
Well, Puebla, the main issues with Puebla were that the biggest Volkswagen factory in Latin America, it's here in Puebla, and also Audi. So the first big cases was because an engineer that came from Europe, from the headquarters in Europe, to give here a type of workshop for the Mexican factory workers at Volkswagen. He was infected, and they didn't really know about it because he was asymptomatic. So by the time they realized, he had already infected a big percentage of the company.
Oh, no.
Well, or of the workers that they were taking that workshop, and that's how it started. And then obviously after that, Puebla is a really touristic city. There's a lot of international companies and factories that are based here, so it was just a matter of time. The closeness to Mexico City, and this type of economical and industrial situations, it was just a matter of time for this to happen.
Is that guy dead, or is he okay? The one who.
To be honest, nothing has been said about him, but some people from the workshop that attended the workshop, they have been reported as safe now. So at least, you know, that there's some good news over there.
What is the number of fatalities that you guys have had in your city to date that you know of?
In Puebla State, according to the last numbers that were reported, we have 44 people that have died, and the number of confirmed coronavirus cases in the whole state is around 335 to the last number that I knew a couple of days ago, but it must be around now 360, 370.
And what are your hospitals like in terms of handling the cases? Do you think that you have the necessary equipment?
No, definitely we don't have the necessary equipment, and we're gonna have a shortage of supplies for sure. The biggest problem right now with Mexico is that we have a president who has been handling things terribly in terms of saying, you know, up to maybe 10 days ago that, you know, people shouldn't be worrying and that people should still go out to the streets because this was something that was, yes. There were big, there were big articles and really strong articles against him, you know, even from American press, Financial Times, New York Times mentioned something about it, CNN, because it was just ridiculous to the point of, you know, the things that he said. So now, obviously, they haven't been prepared about it. And right now, the situation is that hospitals are gonna, probably they're gonna end up collapsing because we don't have the enough amount of tests. That's the problem. So we only know about the cases that have been tested, but probably, you know, there's times 8. The number that we have, the reality must be around times 8.
Oh no, I'm so sorry to hear that. So
yeah,
it's
been hard.
It more seriously now, or are people on quarantine? Are you on quarantine?
Yeah, I'm quarantined. I've been home for the past almost 40 days, I would say. I started, you know, personally just because I knew how bad it could get. My girlfriend, she lives in New York, and I had been in New York, you know, just by January. So she actually came here. I told her to get out of New York, and, you know, I just knew that it was gonna get bad. So I was one of the few that started, you know, the lockdown way earlier. But the real lockdown has been around for 20, 25 days, maybe even 20. And the government, the president just announced 3 days ago that in the cities that have the worst rate of confirmed cases as of now, they're probably gonna keep the lockdown until the mid-June.
Okay, so what does that lockdown mean in Mexico? In different parts of the world, it means different things. Are any of the businesses open at all, or is everything shut?
Well, we have an interesting case here, obviously, because the economy of Mexico, it's, as we call it, informal. So a big percentage of the people here in Mexico, they're people, you know, who don't file taxing. And there's people, you know, that they just get everything, you know, in cash transactions on a daily basis. Obviously, they're not the biggest part, the highest part of the economy, but they're the biggest percentage of the economy. So right now we have an interesting economical case because the governors in each state and also the president, they ordered a lockdown. So all the malls, all the basically all the shopping centers, all the restaurants, and all the bars are closed per legal disposition from the government. However, there's still a lot of people out there because they have to go out and work, you know. So they go out and work as you know, for houses, or they go and work as gardeners. And there's a big percentage of people that, you know, they're still going out there because they cannot afford to stay home, because their income is based on, you know, the daily transactions that they make. So that's the biggest problem that we're going to have. Like, if coronavirus doesn't, you know, make out of Mexico a situation like Spain or Italy or right now New York, where things are tragic. The reality is that economy is gonna end up being tragic more than coronavirus itself, because we're gonna get into a huge recession that it's gonna affect the whole country, and it's not only gonna affect it for this quarter or the third quarter of the year, but it's gonna end up affecting it for at least 1.5 years.
Geez, well, it's very sad because some of what you're describing happening in Mexico, it's not unique to Mexico. There's so many people all over the world that their paycheck depends on going out every single day.
Yeah.
But even though that may be true, going out may also be as harmful as losing that paycheck, because this virus is so vicious and it's just moving so fast.
Yeah, it's a really complicated situation.
Yes, so the government is not controlling those people. They can still go to work if they choose to.
Yeah, there's not any legal disposition or any law that has been announced in which people can get fined, like in Europe, or that they can be stopped over by police. Like, we have I think that in my personal perspective, it's a really bad policy, the fact that they're being so flexible, because like people keep going out, and doesn't matter how much government is trying to do in the health sector, or how much nurses are trying to work, but at the end of the day, people are still going out. That effort is, it's pointless.
You think they're aware of how dangerous this virus is?
Well, I think that that's also like another cultural problem that we have right now in Mexico, which is that people in the big cities, they can understand what's happening or how bad it can get, but people that live in more rural areas, cities or towns, small towns farther away from the capitals of the states, they live in another, they live in another reality, and for them, it's something that they seem to perceive or to think that it's like really far away from them, and that it's not going to happen to them. So you have that kind of mix that it also keeps harming. You have that mix, and then on top of that, you have the government that it's not that is being really flexible about their policies in terms of the lockdown. So if you put those two things together, the result is, it can be catastrophic.
Oh, it can. It's scary to think of what would happen if that virus makes its way into those villages.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
do they have hospitals close by to those areas?
They have hospitals, but as of right now, the only ones that are like fully equipped are 5, and we have 217 towns in the state. We're a big town. We're a big state, so if something ever happens like up north, and they get a whole town infected, I mean, to be honest, like, it's going to sound really bad, but there's nothing much that they're going to be able to do, because
that is sad just to think of. It's scary thinking about that. Hopefully somehow they're going to be spared and it wouldn't happen, as it would be as devastating in those areas. What about your family?
Well, all my family, like, thank God, like, we are in a position where we can work from home, and we can still be productive in those terms. And on the other side, I think that we have, at least, I'm lucky enough to have a really responsible family. So since this thing started, we just got together, and my grandparents, like all my uncles and all of our close relatives, like, we are just in a lockdown because we can understand, how bad it can get, even though people didn't really want to accept it, at the beginning.
Yes. Well, you've lived in New York, and so it seems to me like both areas where you could possibly live, the virus is just on a vengeance there with anything coming. Well, it's bad everywhere, but I think, like you said, the areas where people aren't following the rules or not taking it seriously, they seem to be suffering more. And I'm not implying that New York didn't take it seriously. Only God knows why it spread so terribly in New York. My gut feeling is the fact that so many people use the subway, and the city
the subway, that's it. and everything's so close. One people gets infected and that's it, like the whole town collapses. And honestly, I was impressed because I was there in January. I went to visit my girlfriend for a couple of weeks, and coronavirus was already a big thing for 2 months. It started back in November, December in China. So knowing how efficient, especially New York government tends to be in those type of policies, I was really surprised. When I went there, that they were not doing anything about it. Everybody, it seemed like more of like it was something really distant that was never gonna come, from the other part of the world to United States, and especially to New York. That, yeah, as you say, like public transportation, it's the only way to move around, and you have someone that infects someone else with only one guy. Like, I'm telling you, that's how it started, and now they didn't take the right measurements, and it's now a mess.
I've only ever been on that subway system once, but I just
It
remember
was more than enough.
it was so intimidating. Yes, it was scary because it's so densely packed. I mean, the people are practically on top of each other. So
Yeah.
when I heard how hard they have been hit by this, that's where my imagination took me. And I think the city is also very dense. Like in San Francisco Bay Area where I live, it's not quite as compact, and people don't.
Yeah, there's more open spaces.
Yes, and we don't use public transportation as much, so I think that may help. Although our numbers are getting up there.
Yeah, but I feel that the governor of California, like, he took better policies, better measurements than I would say even Cuomo in New York, for sure.
Well, I love our.
At an earlier stage, for sure.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm very impressed with how he handled California. And I mean, it's not fun being locked down, but to me, there's so many things you can do. It's not like someone is trying to punish you. Everyone who's asking, or all the leaders who are asking their nations to quarantine, they're actually asking you to do it to protect yourself.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, you can make a lot out of this time, if you have a company, or if you're trying, or if you're trying to build a project, or if you have, some milestones to pick up from, like, this is the perfect time, like, to do it. You have a lot of free time, and, it's just looking at opportunities and then making the best out of it. And I think that this one, like, we're gonna, whenever this ends, like, the world won't be the same. Like, everything will be changing in terms of sports. All the teams and all the agents are going to start, applying clauses that are going to talk about pandemics, things that were never ever thought before. And I think that if, we come out stronger out of this, there's so many things that, we can learn as a society, and as, people, and obviously, in terms also of businesses.
No, you're right, because I was thinking, we live in such an advanced world. I mean, look, we could do this, although we're in quarantine. Like you said, there's so much you can do to keep yourself busy. I've been doing 1 to 2 television interviews a day. And when the evening rolls around, I've got to think of the editing, and I think, where did my day go? I don't even realize I'm on quarantine, So I think if you find ways to gainfully occupy your time, then it doesn't bother you as much. But I was just thinking the other day, we live in such an advanced world, and we're all hiding out from a virus. We are all hiding out, and everyone is respectful of it. Leaders, kings, everyone. So I'm trying to think what the lesson is here in all of this. I guess it doesn't matter how advanced you are, you're always vulnerable in some ways.
Yeah.
As a human. What have you learned about Alan from this experience?
Well, I think that it's been, as someone that works in media, and that, I do sports media, but my family, they're always been into politics, and we have here my dad, he manages a big media company that focuses mainly in politics. So from me, for that perspective, I completely agree with what you're saying, with the fact that, politicians have really they have been exposed to something that they were not exposed to, which is the fact that doesn't matter how much power you have, doesn't matter how much money you can manage. At the
Exactly.
end of the day, you're not going to be safe from it, and look at the example of Boris Johnson, like just appointed one of, trying to lead UK out of, Brexit. And then
Boom.
and then you're talking about it as, it's nothing that is going to affect us. Like everything's clear. And then you have him like 3 days after, the hospital as an emergency case, So for me, like from that perspective, I think that it really teaches us how, vulnerable we are and how life, is just like a blink, literally. And then from the other perspective, more in terms of business, I think that this is actually teaching us that you have to diversify yourself.
Mhm.
If you have like all your eggs put into one basket, this is showing us that that's not the right way to go, because if something happens to that industry, which no one ever thought about, and I can tell you like right away that for us, these past months at VaVel had been like really, really good. Like I would probably say like the best in the last 6 years. This past 4 or 5 months, we were doing extremely well. We were already like planning so many things. We had projects almost, closed with private and public entities.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere,
Here
you
comes
didn't plan
Corona.
it, but you're gone. Like that's it. There's nothing else you can do. So this teaches, at least it teaches me and like all my inner circle, that you have to diversify yourself and think about different ways to complement your income and what you're doing, as personal and professional projects.
That's a brilliant perspective. And I think it's true. I think that people get into a job, some of them very early in their lives, and that's what they do forever. I mean, I just can't wrap my head around that. Like after
Yeah, no, it's
years,
true.
I'm like, I need to grow. I'm stuck. I need to move on. I need to do something else. But everyone is different. Some people like to stay within their comfort zones. And even though they may have other abilities, they're fearful. And so they stay where they're at. So I think there's so many lessons for all of us from this virus. And I think
Yeah,
it's fair to humble some of us who thought we were invincible, we were bigger than life.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I try to avoid the political arena because I have very strong opinions, in terms of what I believe in. And so I've done a very good job to date of avoiding the political platform when I do these interviews. Just
Yeah, but
because,
I think that it's just part of it. Like, I mean, if you don't want to get involved in politics, talking about like as a person, like you're disengaged from what's happening, what's your reality. So as much as you hate politics, those are the people who are ruling and making decisions that are uh, directly and indirectly affect you. So
yeah,
yeah,
it,
like I think that part is really interesting from what has been happening.
yeah, and I agree with you, but I also feel like I'm noticing we live in a world where people cannot agree to disagree. So if you have one feeling about something and they feel the other way, they go after your jugular. And I'm really not afraid of people, but I just try to avoid conflict.
Yeah, it has definitely getting radicalized, and
Mhm.
it's lately, I really think that it's been getting really radicalized since the last U.S. presidential elections. Then in Europe you've been having all the issues with Brexit, and then I feel that, as you say, yes, lately it has been getting like more intense than it used to be, or at least I feel that the times that we live in now, where social media magnifies everything, where it's so easy, to criticize someone without actually putting your face out there. I think that it has uh, given a lot to that radicalizing part.
Well, as I've gotten older, I've gotten wiser and I've learned to pick battles. And so to
That's
keep
true.
the peace, I only voice my opinion when I feel it's safe. But I watch, and Facebook is a good place to measure this kind of behavior. You see people voicing how they feel about what they like and whatever their philosophy is. They highlight it on Facebook. And I look at it. If I don't agree, I respect that that's how they feel. I don't attack them for it. But if I put something up there on my
You got to
that they don't like, I mean, I'm like, what the hell? So once I wrote a note that this is my Facebook page and this is where I am going to express myself. And if you don't like my freedom of expression and what I'm writing, please take yourself off my my page.
Please unfriend me.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think it's just really sad that we live in a world now where some people feel it's their way or the highway.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I agree with you.
I know that we'll never really find a government that will please all of the people all of the time. It's never going to happen. So like you said, you have to be aware of politics. You have to keep yourself informed. But I'm choosing my battles these days.
That's the way to do it. I agree with you. I'm gonna take that tip.
So how is VaVel surviving this this pandemic?
Well, we're just holding everything, trying to hold everything there. Income is non-existent right now. Obviously, there's not a sports, like there's nothing much to talk about, and people are completely disengaged, from sports. So for us, this is, I would say, like the company's like biggest hit in its history. But at the same time, there's not much that we can do. We're also, trying to take this opportunity for, engaging more the team and recruiting more authors, working on, specific things that we haven't had the time because of how, hectic, sports usually is. And, we do sports like in every country. So if the weekends are busy, you also have, a mid-week competition somewhere. So you have to be, like putting more attention into like the real things that are happening on a day-to-day basis than having time to plan things. So I think that, we're taking it like the best way that we can. And we just hope that sports, can get, back into TV and into the field. But to be honest, like, I don't think it's going to happen until the next, 3 months. And we'll have to see what we're going to do, for these months.
Even that I think is optimistic in some
Yes.
countries, like in Spain, for example, and based on what you're telling me, it may be true in Mexico as well. Who knows? It could be everywhere, because what I'm observing from doing these interviews and just from reading and listening to the news, when it starts to seem like it's calm and they let people back out, then you get a resurgence of attacks. And then you have another outbreak. And so I think when I think of it, people are counting on a vaccine, but we know that a vaccine is not going to be available before
It's a 1 year.
Think. And my worry is when we do have one, this virus would have outsmarted us and mutated into another strain. So then we still wouldn't have a way to control it. So who knows? I mean, I don't want to be a pessimist, but we also have to keep it real.
No, but it's the truth. Yeah, that's why for us, we're trying to see what we're going to do, and see if we can kind of like pivot into another like half industry that it's in between what we do, technology. But right now the problem is that there's a global economic crisis, so it's really tough to find a company that is going to be willing to invest into a technological platform to solve something to them. They're on the same position as us basically. So we're going to have to see what happens, but we just can't. The only thing that we can be is grateful that we're healthy, and the rest is something that can be fixed with time. And if it doesn't get fixed with time, you have to diversify yourself, so I think that that's the best mentality that you can have about this.
So you were born and raised in Mexico. Were you born and raised in the city where you are now?
Yeah, this is my hometown. I was born here, lived here until I was 12. Then I moved to the United States. I was first in Texas, and then I was there for more than 5 years, and then I moved to New York to finish my college education.
And then when did you return to Mexico?
I just came back last year.
And are you working VaVel from there? From that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have the headquarters here in Mexico are here in Puebla, in my hometown, and I run everything from here, and also like other like projects that I have. But it's, as you said, like technology, it's amazing, and that we can be doing this interview right now. Like it's like if we were in TV perfectly, and at the same time, we found ways to develop our own long distance working platforms and the way to operate. So for me, it's amazing, like how technology has allowed us to at least for me to work, and right now it's allowing you to have like this really interesting interviews with, just reaching to your iPhone or computer or whatever you have there,
Yeah, and I have to really thank the brains behind this technology because I've pretty much gone around the world. I've done interviews in the Netherlands and in Spain and Germany. Now I'm in Mexico,
Yeah,
Antigua,
it's amazing.
Guyana, Trinidad. I mean, I think it's brilliant. All I do is I wake up, I take a shower, I dress from here up, have pajamas in the bottom. And I just come to my computer and I can speak to people around the world and hear what's happening where they live. And I always have a curiosity about people and what works for them and what doesn't work for them to see if I could help when I can. And so this is brilliant that I can do this because
Yeah, I
prior
agree.
to Zoom, I always did my television shows in person, either in the TV station or I would take my television equipment and go in the field and do it. And this, I don't know if I ever want to go back into the studio. This is too easy. Now
Yeah, yeah.
we are both in media. What do you love the most about being in media?
I just think the fact that you're able to live things right at the place and at the moment, and then translate whatever you have, whatever is your take on that specific, narrative, and be able to have people, that trust you enough to say, okay, I want this guy to be the guy that is going to tell me what's really happening, or at least give me, a description of the narrative that it's happening specifically into some type of event. So for me, that's the magic about it. Doesn't really matter like what format you're doing it on, whether it's radio, like written press, TV. I think that each one of those elements has its own magic, and the like the main goal like doesn't change. It's just the medium changes, but not the goal.
That's brilliant. I agree with you. And when I first met you, you just started VaVel.
Yeah,
And that was 5 years ago.
that was 5 years ago. Yes.
I cannot believe 5 years has passed so quickly. Seriously.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
seem like it was that long ago. And what have you guys done since then?
Well, we've opened up editions, which is an extension of the website applied, or transformed into the edition of that country in terms of content, in terms of sections, like the look and feel and everything that entails the sport of that specific country. So we've opened up 12 editions
Oh,
in those 5 years. Yes, and we've seen so many people like come in and learn a lot, and then next thing we know is that we push them to, or we gave them that push to get into big TV networks or big media companies. And then, for example, here in Mexico, when we started, it was just a bunch of teenagers that loved sport, loved media, and wanted to do something different. And now I turned on the TV and I have like two good friends working at ESPN, two guys that started with us at Fox Sports and at the biggest print newspapers in the country. So that model, we have like replicated it in different countries. And I think that the biggest thing that we've done so far is become that like stepping stone for many sports journalists that right now they're being successful. And at the same time, like for me in the personal aspect, I've been able to cover like so many international sporting events. I was at the World Cup in Russia in 2018. I was planning, or I was going to cover the Olympic Games this year in Tokyo. I mean, unfortunately, obviously, it's not going to happen anymore. But maybe I'll be going there next year. And yeah, so I've been having we have access to basically any sporting event that happens in the world. Whatever you call it, FIFA, Formula One, tennis, LPGA, PGA, everything that is a professional sport.
right.
We have access to that.
That is awesome. Congratulations. Believe it or not,
Thank you.
our time is up. But before you go, what would you like to leave with my viewers that I didn't ask you, if there's anything?
Well, I would just say that I would just tell them to be grateful, you know, that they live in a country where, yeah, things can get bad, but you have so many resources at your hand. And for the rest of the international viewership that you have, I would just tell them, you know, to also be thankful that they have the possibility to be with their family, you know, to be healthy right now. And yeah, these are obviously tough times for all of us, but as long as we have health, you know, we have the rest of our lives to, you know, build back on, you know, what we couldn't do for this month or for however this long. But as long as you have health, you know, that's the most important thing.
Well, Alan, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm going to be praying for your city and the people living there. Please stay safe. And
Thank you, Jennylyn.
sure, and we'll be in touch. And thank you so much for watching Conversations with Jennylyn, when a conversation is all you need to be inspired. And thank you for watching. See you next time.